Let's take a look at the second example. In our first fraction, we have 7x over 4x squared minus 20x plus 25, and then plus the second fraction, which is 11 over 12x minus 30. So let's factor first. In our first fraction, it's going to be 7x over, now I notice our denominator, it's a perfect square, so our factors will be 2x minus 5 times 2x minus 5. Again, the reason I know it's a perfect square is the first term and the last term are perfect square. When you multiply the square root of those two terms and then times 2, it matches with the middle. So just like I said before, you need to be familiar with all techniques with factoring. Now for the second fraction, for the denominator, I'm going to have to factor by GCF. So it's going to be 11 on the top. What's in common between 12x and minus 30 is 6. So when I divide, I'm going to have 2x, and then divide by 6 again, minus 5. Alright, so let's identify our LCD. So I have, in the second fraction, my number 6 with the 2x minus 5. Now the reason I'm looking at the second fraction first is because we have a single number that is a factor, and so I'm looking at that one first. So we have the 2x minus 5. Now let's look at the first fraction. We have two factors of the same thing, 2x minus 5. So in our LCD, we already have one 2x minus 5. In the first fraction, we have two of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include one more 2x minus 5. So for LCD, I put the 6 because of the second fraction, and the 2x minus 5 from the same fraction. But in the first fraction, we have two factors of 2x minus 5. So that's why in our LCD, we only have 2x minus 5. Two factors of the same thing, including with the 6. So we are finished with the LCD. Now, what I do recommend to be cautious is that what I noticed in the past is where I've seen students, they thought they had to write the total amount of what you see here. So I had students, they wrote this in combination of this. So in the LCD, they had 6 with 3 factors of 2x minus 5. So what's going to happen is that you're going to end up doing too much work, unnecessary work, when you're trying to work with the LCD. So all we're doing right now is just finding the common denominator. In comparison to the 2 fraction, this one has 1 2x minus 5, while this, the first fraction, has 2 2x minus 5. So at most, in our LCD, it's just 2 factors of 2x minus 5. At most, that's all you have to put. Not 3. If you do 3, you're going to end up doing a lot of work, unnecessary work. You will eventually get the same answer once you finish simplifying. But again, you're just doing too much work, unnecessary work. Alright, let's take a look at the first fraction. Now, in comparison to the LCD, I have the two factors, 2x minus 5. The only thing I'm missing is the 6. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator by 6. Put my plus here. Now we're going to look at the second fraction. So in comparison to the LCD, I have the 6, and I have one factor of 2x minus 5, but I'm missing the other factor of 2x minus 5. So I'm going to multiply by the missing factor from the LCD. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2x minus 5. So once I'm finished with that, now both fractions has the same denominator. They both have 6. They both have the first factor, 2x minus 5, and they both have the second factor, 2x minus 5. So now we're just going to combine the numerators. So my numerator is going to look like this: 7x times 6 plus 11 times 2x minus 5. Since the two fractions have common denominator, I'm just going to write the shorthand LCD for the work. Again, I'm just doing this so it saves me time and I don't have to write this so many times since we have a long LCD. Alright, continue working with the top. 7x times 6 is 42x plus, well, plus 11, that means positive 11. So positive 11 times 2x is plus 22x. Positive 11 times minus 5 will be negative or minus 55 over the LCD. Now we're going to combine like terms. So the only thing I can combine is the 42x plus the 22x. That will be 64x minus 55. Now I'm bringing back the true form of the LCD. So my numerator is, again, 64x minus 55 over 6 times 2x minus 5 times 2x minus 5 again. And that is my final answer. There's nothing in common that can simplify between the numerator and the denominator, so I'm basically finished with that problem. And then I'm going to box up our final answer. Now to review with this example, again, in the first fraction, I noticed that the denominator is a perfect square. That's why we have two factors that are exactly the same, 2x minus 5. And then in the second fraction, we factored by GCF, so the greatest common factor between these two terms is 6. Now, what I do recommend is be very careful when you're doing the factoring by GCF. When you're trying to find or factor out the greatest common factor, make sure that what's inside the parentheses, that there's nothing else in common. There's nothing in common between 2x minus 5, so I'm actually finished factoring by GCF. So my 6 is my greatest common factor. And then everything else is just the same as the previous example. Get common denominator. Once you get that, combine the top, simplify, or combine like terms, and then write out your final answer.